Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_am. So the plan for today is to carry on a tradition, something I think I've done every year, and that is, my traditions are stupid, but I like it. It's a thing that I do. We're going to look at some comps. I want to find out, looking back through history, and there's a million different ways to do this, and we're going to do it a little bit different this year than we have in the past, but really just opening up the books and saying, okay, here's what we know about this team. It's obviously unique, but there have been teams that are similar. What were those teams? What teams can we kind of identify with? And how did those teams perform? Before we get to that, though, a little bit of news and notes, not a ton. A lot of head coaching stuff. Saints interviewed Mike Kafka, the Patriots with Mike Vrabel. Vrabel also has apparently already interviewed with the Jets and the Bears, and then to be determined if the Raiders will be on that list. 49ers did interview Saleh already. As well as the, interestingly enough, who the heck is that guy? Dang it, I didn't take... Oh, there he is. Deshea Townsend. Deshea Townsend, believe it or not, this is for the defensive coordinator job for the 49ers. He is the Lions DB coach. So I just want you to think about this. We've already heard some rumors... We know, I shouldn't say we know. What we do know, Ben Johnson will be taking a head coaching job. That's almost a guarantee. Very good chance that Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, will get a head coaching job. I don't think he should necessarily, but it's been kind of in the works for a while. We'll see if that actually materializes. But now we've got, beyond that, we've heard rumors that there's going to be front office guys getting poached, right? Ben Johnson potentially is going to take some front office people with him to the Jaguars, for example. Now we've got DB coaches also potentially getting poached, which is, it could go all the way down. You might have some of their offensive assistants getting offensive coordinator jobs, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, this might not just be, okay, they lost their offensive coordinator and we move on. They might lose a ton of people, and most of them will probably go on to be pretty terrible. But it doesn't matter. They're out of Detroit, and that's what matters to me. The other thing I thought was a little bit weird, the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, have got they've got a schedule of interviews right now. Usually, you don't do it. I mean, usually when you're in the playoffs, you say, no, I'm sorry. Out of respect for my team, we need to prepare. We need to get ready. I'm not going to be doing interviews until we're done here. It's very odd because it's not just a one-day thing. Here is the schedule for defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. And I understand this is a bye week or whatever, but still, it's I don't know, maybe it's not that uncharacteristic for teams with a bye, but Thursday with the Jets, Friday with the Saints, Friday with the Raiders, that's going to be a heck of a thing, and then Saturday with the Jaguars, Saturday PM with the Bears. Offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, Friday AM and PM with the Patriots and Raiders, Saturday AM PM Bears Jaguars. So I don't know. I guess it's tough if you're the head coach. I mean, generally head coaches are very like, yeah, dude, go get it. You're deserving. We whatever. But at the same time, like, we still have a mission here. And bye week is not screw off week. And both of these guys are going to be heading out. I mean, especially the defensive coordinator. You figure starting Wednesday, you're going to be doing prep. Plus, you've already been doing this. You're lining up your schedule. You're probably sitting down talking with your agent about what people are looking for. You're studying up on these teams. You're trying to figure out, what questions do you have for them? How are you going to answer their questions? Prep is going to take several days. Then you're going to be going on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then what? You come back Sunday, probably get back to work on Monday. It's like you've burned an entire week of prep, and I don't fully understand that. I'm happy about it. I mean, I'm glad that it's like, oh, we got 2 weeks to prepare. It's like, yeah, but your freaking coordinators have been off gallivanting across the country doing interviews, planning for their future away from Detroit. I mean, I'll be honest, if I was a Lions fan, I'd be a little bit pissed about it. Your focus needs to be here. We didn't win a damn thing yet. We haven't won a single playoff game this year. We certainly didn't win the Super Bowl, so I don't know why you're running around doing all this stuff. And I think the concern is, well, some of these jobs might start getting snapped up. Somebody's going to jump in and grab Vrabel real quick. Somebody's going to do this, and then all of a sudden you don't have very many options. Counterpoint, I don't give a crap. I don't know. I was just surprised that they're already doing interviews. Some other NFL news, the Raiders did fire GM Tom Telesco after 1 year. And the biggest news, obviously, my voice is getting all jacked up here. Biggest news for our nation right now is what's going on in California with the fires. Absolutely horrible situation. And I just saw before I started recording this, there's a lot of problems right now with the Rams, who are supposed to be hosting a playoff game. Because I just saw a picture, and they showed that from the Rams facility, you can now see smoke as it's starting to encroach on the facility. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it sounds like the plan currently is to play in LA, but to set up a contingency plan if things go south to play in Glendale, Arizona. Now, that would obviously be really unfortunate for the Rams to lose home field advantage, but, again, that's, I suppose, a secondary thought. I mean, I'm not too familiar with LA, but I have to assume it's going to be unlikely that the game is there. Because there's not just the primary concern of like, oh, is there going to be a fire there? There's also a question of, I mean, you've got evacuation efforts going on. You've got serious air quality issues, just all kinds of, disruptions due to traffic and evacuations and all the kinds of stuff that you got going on. I don't know, man. Just put the freaking thing in Arizona, will you? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's fine. I know LA is huge, but it seems crazy. As for Packers news, as far as injuries are concerned, Quay Walker returned to practice, limited participant, optimistic about his potential return. He said Walker was playing his best football before his injury, excelling as a Mike linebacker in Jeff Hafley's system. I don't know about all that, but, whatever. If they feel that way, then maybe. He says the return could boost the Packers' run defense. I mean, I know, again, if you go back several games, I suppose that's true. I think, I don't know how many, I don't know the exact trajectory. I know he was good for a while, and then that just went away. Evan Williams, also back. Xavier McKinney noted it's good to have him back, especially with the defense getting healthier. Jordan Love and Malik Willis will do a package deal, both of them full participant in practice. And Jordan did confirm he'll be good to go for Sunday's playoff game. Again, there hasn't. I don't think there still has been an official word. I don't know. It's very weird, but it's official. It's going to happen. Bullard, Cooper, Cox, Dillard, Quay, Evan Williams, and Slayton were all limited. And then Zane Anderson and Christian Watson did not participate. Obviously, we will not see Watson. I don't know if and when they're just going to shut him down or how that works. I guess it doesn't super matter. Rich Bisaccia did speak to the media. He said essentially on that punt return disaster, he just put it on himself, said it was on me for not getting him prepared for that play. He said within the last several weeks. So, I mean, I'm assuming they talked about it. They just haven't talked about it recently. I don't know. He did say punt left was indicated pre-snap, but it hasn't been discussed in prior weeks. He's now reviewing 14 to 15 years of data to prepare for similar situations. So, bottom line, yes, they did say we're going to punt left. So that should have been, like, when it appears we're going to the right, don't just assume, oh, the freaking guy shanked it and is going the wrong way. Assume that he did the right thing and verify. But also, again, it's like, oh, that's so stupid. How could you not see that coming? There's so many of these stupid little trick plays. So Bisaccia's got to go back throughout the course of his entire history. And they're probably going to have a whole big, long sit down on, okay, here's the book on all the bull crap little tricks that people want to play. We're going to go through them so that you guys are prepared. And I know there's a question of, like, why wouldn't they do that anyways? I don't know, man. There's limited time. How much time do you want to dedicate to each individual thing? How much time do we want to dedicate to special teams, period? The team generally doesn't want to dedicate very much. Now we have to take away from X, Y, and Z and do a special little thing on trick plays, and I don't know. I don't know how you do everything. Jeff Hafley on that final play, he said, it's not the call we were supposed to be in. It'll never happen again. Mentioned that there was some kind of a miscommunication, so I don't really know what exactly that means. I mean, did they call down and just get put in the wrong? I have no idea. Maybe there was a miscommunication in terms of clock management and what we're trying to do that was communicated to Hafley, who then had to call a play for how Matt wanted to play it. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but again, I don't know how you could answer that question any better. There was a miscommunication, that'll never happen again is really the only halfway acceptable answer, I guess. He did praise Edgerrin Cooper, NFC Defensive Player of the Month. Quote, it's tough to take a player of that caliber off the grass. He can erase plays. On Xavier McKinney's sign, that might have been Matt LaFleur, actually. And then on Xavier McKinney's signing, apparently Hafley was at the recruitment dinner with McKinney and was a major part of securing him and getting him to Green Bay. And he just remembers after the dinner saying something to the effect of, we can't let that guy leave. Which is another thing I was kind of thinking of as he was talking about that. It's easy to notice the little negatives. Like, well, why is that defensive lineman dropping in coverage? Like, I don't know, because you got to mix it up, dude. You can't do the same thing over and over again. I'm sorry. Well, why did we have that one bad play at the end? I don't know. It was a mistake. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that these guys do that is very positive that we don't really notice, and this would be a great example of that. Xavier McKinney being in Green Bay largely because Jeff Hafley is our defensive coordinator. That's all I got for notes. Why don't we take a break? We'll come back and screw around a little bit. We'll be right back. Also forgot to mention the Eagles injury report, so let's go through that real quick. A.J. Brown did have a knee injury and was limited. He did not participate on Thursday, but I believe that's veteran rest. They have knee/rest on there. Limited participant Jack Driscoll, their offensive lineman. Limited participant Lane Johnson, that's veteran rest. Trevor Keegan, guard, did not participate with an illness. Limited Kenny Pickett, quarterback, and Will Shipley, running back. And everybody else is a full participant. So not looking like there's anything that stands out that's like, oh boy, that's a big deal. Again, I think Jalen Hurts is ready to rock and roll. He was a full participant. So he's got a concussion/left finger issue, but I think he's going to be fully cleared by the time this game rolls around if he isn't already. So it's going to be pretty much full strength versus full strength. I know he lost Watson and all, but it seems like everyone's kind of trending in that direction. So no excuses, man. Show up and get her done. All right, so I actually did this two different ways. Thanks to the help of the robot, I can do a little bit more advanced stuff. Before, in the past, it was a little bit more eyeballing it kind of a deal. You pick a certain stat. Usually, I think I would do offense, defense, and overall margin or something like that. I don't know. Try to throw in quarterback, PFF grade and stuff. Took me a lot of time. This one here I like. Maybe we'll get to the other one. Maybe we won't. So this is EPA. The other one is DVOA. But we've got, for example, points per game, offensive EPA, pass and rush EPA, quarterback EPA, success, things like that. And then, of course, defense across the board. A few other things like sack rate. I added margin in here. So margin of victory, how much more you score as opposed to have scored against you. And then what I did is I had the robot help me out running some Python code to generate some similarity scores. Using this data for going back to probably like 99 or something. Find teams that are most similar to the current teams. So what I want to do is go from the most similar to the least similar. There's a bunch of different ones, so I'll just do one per team here. I'm also going to skip Green Bay, even though that is the team with the second highest similarity score, because, save the best for last and all that. So if you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, let's just dive into it. So the Kansas City Chiefs, this is the most similar comparison. So I went through all the current playoff teams, and the closest comparison to any team with the current playoff teams is the current Kansas City Chiefs and the 2006 Dallas Cowboys. Now, this is probably going to make a lot of sense because if you look at the Chiefs and what they've been doing, you're looking at them going, their record doesn't make sense. They're not super good. Well, the 2006 Dallas Cowboys under Bill Parcells, with Mike Zimmer as the defensive coordinator, went 9-7 in their division. They ranked 4th on offense, but 20th on defense. They did end up limping into the playoffs, but they lost in the first round to the Seattle Seahawks 21-20. So to give you some idea of what that similarity looks like, the current Kansas City Chiefs are scoring 22 points per game. They were scoring 23. EPA per play is .05 and .05. Pass EPA, .13, .13. Rush EPA is one of the only ones that's marginally different, and Kansas City is worse. Quarterback EPA, .05, .05. Success rate, the Kansas City Chiefs are .5, so 50%. Dallas was 48%. Points allowed per game, the Kansas City Chiefs are at 19 points. They were at 20 points. So very, very, very similar football teams. Their margin of victory, Dallas Cowboys were at 3, Kansas City 3.1. Sack rate, .05, .05. Defensive success rate, .46, .46. So the current Kansas City Chiefs are, shockingly identical to the 10-6, or excuse me, I already switched over to the next one, to whatever the Dallas Cowboys one was. All right, anyways. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers Doppelganger, that's what I should be calling this. The Pittsburgh Steelers Doppelganger are the 2002 Indianapolis Colts. 2002, and by the way, Pittsburgh also not a super shockingly good team, so you got similar results here. This is the 10-6 Tony Dungy Indianapolis Colts. By the way, one of my favorite things to do, and let me do it for screw it, we missed it. I love going back and looking at these coaching staffs and everything because it's so cool to see. You look at these random assistants that mean nothing, that it's like, holy crap, that guy was a head coach like 5 years ago. So, you got Tony Dungy as the head coach, Tom Moore, offensive coordinator, Ron Meeks, defensive coordinator, Jim Caldwell was the quarterback's coach. Caldwell did become the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts starting in 2009, got demoted to offensive coordinator of Baltimore, and then was the Detroit Lions head coach 2014 through 2017. But the 2002 Indianapolis Colts were, as far as points, they ranked 17th on offense, but 7th on defense that year, 9th in yards, 8th on defense in yards. They, too, were one and done in the postseason. In fact, it was a shockingly ugly game. They went up against, let's see how this team fared, the 9-7 New York Jets, so not a very good Herm Edwards Jets team. And they lost 41-0. Steelers this year are going up against the Baltimore Ravens, so I would encourage them to watch out. We'll get to the Ravens and see how they did, but that's rough. The next Doppelganger is the Los Angeles Chargers, who are playing the Houston Texans. That's actually the first game we're going to be able to watch, which is super exciting. That is 2 days away, 1 day away for you. That's super exciting, and I'm getting nervous. This team not as crazy similar. The similarity score, by the way, for the Kansas City Chiefs, for example, was 43. This is 37, so we're kind of moving down a little bit. But still a very similar football team. And our first very good football team. This is the 2013 Jim Harbaugh San Francisco 49ers team. Went 12-4 that year. Greg Roman, offensive coordinator. Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator. Ed Donatel was the secondary coach. Ejiro Evero, offensive assistant. Eric Mangini, senior offensive consultant. Jim Tomsula was the defensive line coach. Tomsula, however you say his name. I hate to rehash some of these memories. They were 11th on offense, 3rd on defense. They were a little bit more successful in the postseason, as you might very well remember. Played the Green Bay Packers January 5th in the wild card round, beat them 23-20. Played the Carolina Panthers the next week, beat them 23-10, and then lost to the Seattle Seahawks 17-23. You know what's terrifying about that if you're looking for a comp this year, you've got a team that is the Chargers, that is your comp, right? What do? They beat 2 teams, and then they went on to play the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a team that are in their division. The Seahawks, by the way, did get a bye, so they were the number 1 team in the NFC. The team that we'd be talking about this year would be the Kansas City Chiefs. That better not happen. All right, next up is the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos Doppelganger is the 2004 Pittsburgh Steelers. If there is any merit to this little process we're going through, this is a pretty serious team to pay attention to. 2004 Pittsburgh Steelers were 15-1 under Bill Cowher. Ken Wisenhunt was the offensive coordinator. Dick LeBeau, the defensive coordinator. Bruce Arians, wide receivers coach. That's about it for interesting names that I'm aware of. They were 11th on offense, but number 1 on defense. They were the number 1 scoring defense, number 1 in yards, number 2 in first downs, 4th in passing yards, number 1 in passing touchdowns, 5th in net yards per attempt passing, number 1 in rush yards allowed, 5th in rush touchdowns allowed, 5th in yards. I mean, just dominant defense. Unfortunately, that dominant defense was not good enough. They lost their only game week 2. So they went on a 14-game win streak, just beating the living daylights out of everybody. Got into the playoffs, went up against the Jets, won in overtime by 3. So I mean, it's funny to think about this stuff because we feel like we really know what's going on, and these teams are really good, and you just there's no way that this team or that team or whatever. I mean, this is a 15-1 team. Pretty rare to have that good of a record. Imagine beating everybody, and not every game is a big win. Most of them were, but it's 33-30 against the Giants, whatever. You get into the playoffs, you play the Jets, and you nearly lose immediately. You have to go into overtime to win by a field goal. That's scary. Like, what the heck is going on? All right, fine. Now we go up against the Patriots. They lost 41-27. They got embarrassed. Granted, it was against the 14-2 Patriots, so that would be similar to like the Eagles against the Detroit or whatever, Minnesota against Detroit, which fingers crossed, Eagles in Detroit. I mean, not Eagles, obviously, but I mean, if it came down to it, that would be great. And that's where, again, playoffs, just all bets are off, man. You were the cool kid in school back in middle school. High school is a new game, you know what I mean, or college, or however you want to play that stupid analogy. As for the Houston Texans Doppelganger is the 2017 Ron Rivera Carolina Panthers. Going back to the Cam Newton days, the Ron Rivera Panthers were 11-5. Mike Shula, offensive coordinator. Steve Wilkes, defensive coordinator. Ken Dorsey was the quarterback's coach. He is currently the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns. He was the offensive coordinator for the Bills last year. Al Holcomb, linebackers coach. Anyways, they were a pretty middle-of-the-road team. They were 12th on offense, 11th on defense. Not real streaky as far as their season win. It was kind of win-loss all the way through. But you're feeling all right. I hate to bring it up, but you're an 11-win team. You're feeling kind of good, despite getting embarrassed the last week of the season by a division rival 22-10. Oh, God, is this the Packers? Anyways, their first game is against the New Orleans Saints and are one and done, 31-26. Then we have the mighty Buffalo Bills. Their doppelganger is the 2012 Bill Belichick New England Patriots. I know, you're scrambling in your head. Is this one of the Super Bowl years? Let's skip to the end. No, it's not. You'll be happy to hear. Bill Belichick's Patriots that year went 12-4. Brian Flores was their safeties coach that year. Matt Patricia, defensive coordinator. Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator. Patrick Graham, defensive coordinator for the Ravens this past year, was their defensive line coach. But they had the number one offense in football, 9th-ranked defense, which feels like a Buffalo Bills team. Started off the season 5-3, ended 12-4, so really got hot at the right time. Got into the playoffs, eviscerated the Houston Texans 41-28. You're feeling real good. And then lost to the Baltimore Ravens 28-13. Feels like a very Buffalo Bills kind of a thing. As for the Philadelphia Eagles, their doppelganger, 2005 Seattle Seahawks. It's kind of interesting. You don't think about the whatever it is, 2012 Seahawks as being a playoff caliber team, but this is the 13-3 Mike Holmgren Seattle Seahawks. Had Ray Rhodes as the defensive coordinator. Terrell Austin was the defensive backs coach. He is currently defensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is pretty hilarious. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be in the playoffs this year. But they have the number 1 ranked offense, number 7 ranked defense. Slightly interesting tidbit, their last game of the regular season, they actually lost to the Green Bay Packers 23-17. However, got into the playoffs, beat the Washington Redskins 20-10, beat the Carolina Panthers 34-14 to make your way to the Super Bowl. Seattle went up against the Pittsburgh Steelers and lost 21-10. So I think that's our first Super Bowl appearance, if I'm not mistaken. Which, again, this is the second time now I've seen a path where Philadelphia beats Detroit and goes to the Super Bowl. And I've also seen now the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, making it to the Super Bowl. Not by way of the Chiefs necessarily, but by way of somebody else, the Chargers. I'm not liking the picture that's being painted, I guess. I'm half joking, but still, it's making me sick to my stomach a little bit. By the way, I hate that Minnesota, Detroit, and Philadelphia are all options. I'm glad San Francisco's not in this, but it's like, if the Packers don't go to the Super Bowl, not only does it suck because we lost, but it's almost certainly going to be something awful as far as who's going to the Super Bowl. But all right, I tell you what, it feels like a decent halfway point. Why don't we just stop here? Probably won't do DVOA. Maybe we'll do Packers and whatnot, and Philadelphia because it's kind of funny and awful at the same time. But anyways, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We got Detroit, Minnesota, Washington, Baltimore, I think Tampa Bay, and then Green Bay. We'll be right back. So hilariously enough, we can kind of just skip over Detroit because Detroit's doppelganger is the exact same as the Buffalo Bills. It's the 2012 New England Patriots, which makes me feel oh so good, right? That's also the second picture, by the way, of Detroit getting in and getting beat. In this case by Philadelphia, but whatever, it doesn't matter, they lose, and that makes me happy. Minnesota Vikings are kind of an interesting one. It is the 2003 Jeff Fisher Tennessee Titans. So funny when I think of Jeff Fisher, it's just, aren't you supposed to win 9 games or something like that? 12-4, that's something interesting. But he had Mike, oh man, what is that? Heimerdinger. Hey, Mike Heimerdinger is offensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz was his defensive coordinator. Chuck Cecil was the defensive assistant. Chuck Cecil right now, senior assistant at Arizona, the FBS. Looks like he did get a shot as a defensive coordinator for the Titans in 2009, 2010. I don't know why I felt the need to look that up, but I was just curious what happened to that guy. Oh, Mike Munchak, offensive line coach. Very, very respected offensive line guy. I remember that. He ended up being the head coach for the Titans for 3 years, and then was O-line coach for the Steelers, and then Denver Broncos through 2021. Looks like he is officially done at this point. But 12-4 Jeff Fisher Tennessee Titans were the 5th ranked offense, but the 13th ranked defense. They, again, just kind of off and on, no real patterns there. Won their last 3 games going into the playoffs. First game was in the wild card against the Baltimore Ravens. They won that game 20-17. Then they went on to play the New England Patriots and lost 17-14. Kind of similar to the Seattle Seahawks thing. When you look at Washington's doppelganger, it is the Kansas City Chiefs. But not what you might think. It's not the Pat Mahomes Chiefs. It's the 2003 Dick Vermeil. They went 13-3. Al Saunders was the offensive coordinator. Greg Robinson, defensive coordinator. You guys might know some of those names. I do not. But they had the number 1 offense in football. They were the 19th ranked defense. As far as yards, they were number 2 on offense, 29th on defense. It's going to be a little bit, you might hear me say that and be like, well, that doesn't sound like this team. It just depends the rest of the competition. That's why I like things like EPA and success rate and all that are a little bit more. I'm just kind of giving you, it's kind of interesting in my mind. I'm thinking it of as if Washington was playing in 2003, they would have more of an elite offense and a worse defense. But the 2003 Dick Vermeil Chiefs, they were 8-0 to start the season. Things started getting super rocky. It was win-loss, win-win-loss, win-loss, win. And then they got into the playoffs and were one and done by the Indianapolis Colts. They got kind of blown out 38-31. Well, very strangely, the Baltimore Ravens also most closely relate to the 2012 New England Patriots. I don't know if that's just like a generic team or what the heck that is. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers, kind of a similar team, but not exactly the same. 2003 Mike Holmgren Seattle Seahawks. They were 10-6 that year. Basically the same group as before. 7th on offense, 15th on defense, kind of a win-lossy team. Got into the playoffs, and you may remember this game. They lost in the wild card to the Green Bay Packers. That was a 33-27 loss in overtime, which could only be one postseason game, and that's the we want the ball and we're going to score game. All right, so that's that. As a bonus, so I didn't just do the most similar, I did the 4 most similar teams. And even though none of them were the most similar, there were actually some teams that compared to previous Green Bay Packers teams. For example, the Pittsburgh Steelers this year align most closely with the 2002 Green Bay Packers. The Philadelphia Eagles with the 2009 Green Bay Packers. That's scary enough. Which, by the way, again, very, very talented football team. Didn't quite get there. Houston Texans, 2015 Green Bay Packers. That sucks for them. Washington, the 2020 Packers. And Buffalo, the 2020 Packers. But now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the anticlimactic Green Bay Packers doppelganger. The Packers' most similar playoff team, going back to 99, is it's actually not a terrible thing, 2007 Wade Phillips Dallas Cowboys. That team went 13-3. Again, feeling pretty good about the fact that probably have a better record than how it seemed. Jason Garrett, the offensive coordinator. Brian Stewart, the defensive coordinator. Todd Bowles was a secondary coach. Paul Pasqualoni was the linebackers coach. Wes Phillips was quality control and offensive assistant. And Tony Sperano was the offensive line / assistant head coach for that team. I guess they only lost 3 games, but 2 of their 3 losses came at the end of the season. So there's some friggin' negative stuff. And understandably, the last game of the season, they did lose to a division rival. First game in, they play the New York Giants and lose 21-17. They were one and done. Here are all the other similar teams that we got. The 2004 Denver Broncos. This one's fun because it's actually the Mike Shanahan Denver Broncos. They were 10-6 that season. Gary Kubiak, offensive coordinator. Nobody else I really recognize. This team, nothing super interesting with their record. And once again, they were one and done and in pretty spectacular fashion. They played the Indianapolis Colts and lost 49-24. From that same year, another similar team is the 2004 Bill Belichick New England Patriots. This one is, I probably should have saved this one for last, but this is a good one. 14-2. You've got Charlie Weiss, offensive coordinator, Romeo Crennel, defensive coordinator. Brian Daboll was a wide receivers coach. Brian Flores was the scouting assistant. Josh McDaniels was the quarterback coach. Eric Mangini, defensive backs. Matt Patricia was the offensive assistant. Dean Pease, linebackers coach. I mean, geez Louise. But 4th-ranked offense, 2nd-ranked defense. They only lost 2 games, one kind of in the middle, one at the end. Lost to Miami by 1 point. They went to the playoffs against the Indianapolis Colts. Let's take a look at them real quick. Pretty powerful 12-4 Indianapolis Colts team. They ended up beating them 20-3. They played the Pittsburgh Steelers, beat them 41-27, and then beat the Philadelphia Eagles 24-21. Hopefully that's a good omen because that was the Super Bowl that year that they beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Don't have to go over it, but the 2003 Seattle Seahawks again, and then finally the 2008 New York Giants. 12-4 Tom Coughlin Giants. Steve Spagnuolo, defensive coordinator. That's about it. 3rd-ranked offense, 5th-ranked defense. They actually were a pretty bad team down the stretch. They went 11-1. then lost to the Eagles, lost to the Cowboys, beat the Panthers in overtime, lost to Minnesota, and were one and done in the postseason to the Philadelphia Eagles, 23-11. So we got to hang on real tight to that New England Patriots team because there's a lot of one and dones out of this group. All right, now real quick, I want to look at these DVOA similarities. This is the same exact process, just using DVOA instead of the EPA, whatever. Went and got all the old DVOA thing, weighted overall, weighted offense, weighted defense, compared it against historical ones, ran it through Python thing, whatever. And you get some similarities. First thing I want to point out is my least favorite. The most similar team to the current Philadelphia Eagles is the 1985 Chicago Bears. I don't know how much I need to dive into that history, but shockingly dominant team, 15-1, Mike Ditka, Chicago Bears, Buddy Ryan, the Rex Ryan's dad or whatever, he was the defensive coordinator of that team. They were, if I didn't say it, 15-1, second ranked offense, number one defense. They were number one in points, number one in yards, number one in turnovers. Number one in first downs allowed, passing yards, passing touchdowns, or third in yards and touchdowns, number one in interceptions, number two in passing net yards per attempt. They were number one in rushing yards allowed, rushing touchdowns allowed, sixth in rushing yards per attempt. I mean, just stupid good. The only team that beat them was the Miami Dolphins, 38-24. They went to the postseason, beat the Giants 21-0. Beat the Rams 24-0, and then beat the Patriots 46-10. Jeez. Some other highlights. They beat New England 20-7. They allowed 7 to the Packers, 9 to the Vikings, 10 to the Packers, 3 to the Lions, 0 to the Cowboys, 0 to the Falcons, 10 to the Colts, 6 to the Jets. They had 4 shutouts that season. 2 of them were in the postseason. Goodness gracious. Kind of a fun one for us, though, for DVOA. The highest correlation is actually the 2023 Baltimore Ravens. So, 4th-ranked offense, number one defense that year. Obviously didn't end the best, but very, very scary football team. Similar in that they were 7-3. Then they went on a 6-game win streak, and then lost the final game, home game, to a division rival, 17-10 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They went to the playoffs. They beat the Houston Texans 34-10, and then lost to the Kansas City Chiefs 17-10. Well, my brain hurts, so I'm going to leave it at that. I always get excited when I do these things, and it's just so much tedious work. It's like, I'm dead. But nothing's new under the sun, man. Whatever the Packers are, some other teams have been very similar to it. Same goes for Philadelphia, and very different outcomes for different teams, especially in different seasons. Like I said, New England won a Super Bowl, but they also pretty much were dominant over everybody else. Why? Well, competition wasn't as good, I guess. Anyways, you guys have a good rest of your night. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.